Peace, peace, family. We are now live. Black Magic 363. We are live once again. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Thanks for being patient. Thanks for waiting. It will be well worth your wait after you see what my brother, my brethren, Red Pill, has in store.
Indeed, indeed.
You know, it's going to be a great show tonight. It's going to be a college level presentation. So much has been hidden and lied to us about our history, our global presence outside of
Right.
Africa. So if you were fortunate enough to read Runoko Rashidi, Ivan Van Serma, those type of authors, you appreciate what Red Pill is going to deliver tonight, and all the Moorish brothers who talk about our presence in Europe. You know, once you realize how rich your history is, you feel rich. Once you feel rich, you activate your DNA. You turn on DNA. You make your DNA act rich because DNA responds to environment. The end product of environment is your emotional reaction. So it's all tied in together, family. I'm definitely look forward to today's show. I want to get to some ads. I'll make sure you like the video. Everybody who's in here, make sure you like the video. That's very important for the algorithm. We going very strong this year. All right. We're going very strong. Keep up. Bring a pen and a pad. This is not just for your entertainment, family. All right. I got a disclaimer before I get started. Let me give my disclaimer. A little disappointed in the fact that I was watching my brother Kev. If y'all seen my show the other day, Kev from Real Niggas came on and we was talking about the brain.
Yeah, he was lit.
Yeah, we was talking about the brain. Tachyon. How you say that word, Red? Tachyon?
Tachyon energy.
Yeah, tachyon energy. We was talking about thoughts, and
thoughts.
He did a new show, and he said that I guess some people came up from my show. I don't know where the people came from, but I was watching a show of his, and he said that you know, some people went to his channel and got mad at his delivery of the information. Right. They actually got mad that he would, you know, he has a good time while he teaches, and he was laughing, and they got mad at that. And I'm like, I'm seeing more of this. I seen him with Sophia Stewart last night with her wearing a mask. She was in a public facility, a public place where they allowed her to be in there under one condition, that she put on a mask. And we said that several times during the interview. But you know, a lot of times people just assume the worst, and just so many negative comments about her wearing a mask during the show. And even if it looks weird or awkward, back in the day, we would go through anything to get information. Right. Back in the day, in our day, Red, we would go to we'll attend a KKK meeting just to get some esoteric information because they had the Albert Pike information. You know what I'm saying? Like, we do what we got to do for the information. I don't want y'all to get thrown off. Yeah, how dare you be happy? Yeah, this would look at this comment. So I just want to make a disclaimer, family. If you are one of those people who just came into consciousness and you get offended by profanity, this channel is not for you. And I'm doing this disclaimer. I'll be seeing my brother Rashad Jamal. If any of y'all know him, let him know I want to do an interview with him because I'm definitely looking. I wasn't able to get in touch with him through Instagram, but let the brother know that I feel his information. I do want to do an interview with the brother, but he does a disclaimer sometime in the beginning, so I'm gonna have to do a disclaimer today. If you're offended by profanity, this channel is not for you. We don't give a fuck when we feel the need to. We may use profanity. We don't just use it to use it, but when we feel the need to, we will use it. And I don't want to call it curse words because, you know, who says they're curse words? You know, that's a whole nother subject.
Saying words like bless you, that's a curse word. When somebody sneezes, calling somebody nice, that's a curse word. Claiming that you humble, that's a curse word because those are literally curses. Not saying, you know, shit and damn and all of these other things. But how do you think I've been on my profanity in the past few years?
I mean, you've been, you know, you use it when you feel if your heart tells you to use it, use it. Don't just use it to sound cool. But I remember when people used to say, why Red and Blue got on sunglasses? They used to wear sunglasses all the time. And everybody used to complain, I can't see their eyes. Like, yo, a lot of y'all are very spiritually immature. And this is all, y'all looking for somebody to follow. And when we don't fit that image in your mind of that Jesus you want to follow, you get very frustrated. You're not here to follow us. You're here to get information. There's going to be things I do you don't agree with. There's going to be things Red Pill do and vice versa that you're not going to agree with. It's okay. It's fine. Don't get frustrated. Somebody said yesterday with Sophia Stewart, I'm getting anxiety from watching her mask. If you don't get the fuck out of here with that, you're getting anxiety from her wearing a mask. Anxiety, you that thrown off and triggered. Bobby used to say curse words are the litmus test for those who are truly conscious. And if you can't handle a curse word or certain things, then you need to get the fuck out of here. That's what Bobby used to say. I remember
when AA used to open up the lecture
with hip hop.
15 minutes of cursing.
Okay,
and then he'd be like, "Well, I started that just to get the Poindexters out of the building."
Yeah.
Feel me? Yeah. Because it's like, you know, we're gonna talk that talk. You know what I'm talking about? Like you're gonna get enlightened.
Let me just finish this, Red, because I want you to start. I don't want to go keep this segment going too long. The whole point is, family, let people be who they are. I want to give an example. When I had the brother Yakio on here, Yaki Awakened, Yaki went in on the Caucasian, 6 ether beings. He went in. Did you see that, Red?
Yeah,
he went in hard during the whole show. The show was like 2 hours and change. There was a Caucasian in the chat.
Right.
The motherfucker stayed the whole time to soak up that information. And he said, I'm watching, I seen it. He's like, I'm white, you know. I feel like, you know, I got a good heart. You know, when you got a good heart, it's whatever. He stayed the whole time, conversated, soaked up the information the whole time. Our people was like, I gotta go. I mean, I've got anxiety. Red Pill has on a kufi. I thought you wasn't religious. Like, your family. You see the difference. This is how when y'all say, how was they able to come up from the Moors? They could have hated us, but absorbed the information at the same time. Don't listen, stop looking for, they knew they didn't want to follow us, but they knew they know who the gods was. They knew that we had something that they wanted. Look at me, look at Red. You can love us, appreciate us, but we have something you want. Get that. Make sure you get that. Don't let sunglasses or him laughing or me cursing or whatever. Don't let that distract you, family.
Right.
Or Sophia Stewart had on a wig. You know how many ancient Egyptian women wore wigs? But yet y'all claim y'all into ancient Egypt so much. Stop bitching about Vicky Dillard's wig or her braids or so. Stop bitching about ain't nothing. If y'all had a girl in the first place, y'all know that sometimes the females wear wigs or whatever for protective hairstyles.
Right.
Just like the brothers like to wear hats, kufis, whatever. But there's so many brothers without women out here. Y'all lonely, fucked up in the game. Y'all don't even understand it. How many of our grandmothers wore wigs? We got to grow up, family, spiritually, emotionally, all that. We got to grow up. So, yeah, it is what it is. I got a lot of love for y'all, but I just don't want y'all to get, let me hold up, Red. I just don't want y'all to get so emotionally triggered when somebody does something that you didn't think your Messiah would do. You don't get triggered because your vision of your Messiah, he's not fitting that prototype, and you want to mold him into being it. So you tell him, no, do this, because once he does that, then he could be your Messiah, and then you're comfortable. Let's cut it out, family. It's so important. It's so important. And I don't care. They're like Vicky Wig, crazy respectful. It doesn't matter, nigga. If you're looking for the information, that's irrelevant. If you feel that way, that's irrelevant. Who cares?
Right. That only lends to the cult of personality worship. That only shows that people are still having these Christian withdrawals and whatnot.
Christian withdrawals. That's a good one. Christian withdrawals.
And it lends to the fact that we are evolving in our consciousness collectively. When we all first started out, I'm going to keep it 1,000 with the audience. We were caught up on images as well. If you was not wearing a dashiki, you know what I'm talking about? If you didn't pull up wearing some mud cloth and you was trying to teach us about Africa and the ancestors, we was looking at you side-eyed, like in the late 90s. Mm-hmm. Then we evolved to the point where people were teaching with do-rags on and whatnot, with their hats to the back. Not to say that that's the respectable outfit and whatnot, but what happened was the information became more important than the quote-unquote uniform of the person that was delivering it, because we're now in an era to whereas the hip-hop generation and, you know, just the people, I don't even want to say the hip, I'm just saying people overall are delivering their version of their story, their information, and their light. And it's only because we're visual on YouTube that you're getting to judge us based off our appearances. If we were doing a podcast or we were on Blog Talk Radio, we could have, you know, the silky Hawaiian and all kind of, you know what I'm saying? Niggas could have their edges back and you wouldn't know, you wouldn't care. You would receive the information. It wouldn't matter if somebody has their eyelashes intact and whatnot when they're teaching you, because that's a little too vain. And what we're doing is we're moving past that. So the way that the ancestors is, they're going to put somebody in front of you with 100 tattoos on their face to teach you. And then you're going to have to get past your
like Derek Grace.
Yeah, like a Derek Grace. Yeah. You're going to have to look past your preconceived notion that somebody with tats on their face can't teach you. Right? So we get to evolve when we get past the mundane.
Indeed. So yeah, I just wanted to give that disclaimer, family. Let's get into it, because the times are so important now, family. And I know trolls are gonna be there, that's cool, whatever. But yeah, the times are so important now, family. It's so important right now. You see, I picked up the pace. We're moving at warp speed right now, family. So I just want y'all to keep up. I appreciate all the love and support, family. Make sure you hit the like button. Like I said, I'm go get some ads real quick, and then we are gonna get into the presentation tonight. It'll be about an hour to hour and a half, and we're gonna end it with some Q&A. All right, family. But we got a packed week. People are gonna be coming on all week long. Tomorrow, what today? Today's Wednesday. Tomorrow we got Billy Carson. Friday, A.A. Rashid, and then Saturday we got Boyce Watkins coming through with some financial information to free you from that 9-to-5 matrix if you want to. If you love your 9-to-5, that's great. My mom was a teacher and she loved her job, so I wouldn't try to free her from that because that's something she loved to do. So if you love your job, that's great. But if you want to be free, there's plenty of financial information out there. And with that being said, let's get to some ads. I want to first and foremost give a shout out to my brother King Simon, one of the best when it comes to numerology. Text him your full name and date of birth. So 347-496-1022. The brother also has an introductory course on udemy.com. All right, udemy.com. You go there to get his introductory course, and you'll get more information on his 8-hour lecture. Also, go to the website, blackmagicuniversity.com. We got the financial workshops. We got the esoteric workshops. I got a couple of workshops from Red Pill. We got a lot of things going on over there. We're going to continue to grow it. But I want y'all to get familiar with that website. It's in its beginning stages now. We're just going to get better and better. All right, family? With that being said, my brother Red Pill, I want to give you the floor. I know you got a wonderful presentation tonight. So I want you to get to that. You know what I'm saying?
Indeed. Well, thank you first and foremost for your invite to the platform to deliver a dissertation.
Yes.
In the month of February that Kanye has coined Black Future Month, right? Future Month, yes. And coming on the heels of a powerful presentation that Blue Pill did with my good brother Mansa Muhammad dealing with the doctrine of discovery, I'm going to follow up with the illustrious history of the Moors in Europe, right? And also touch on the Holy Roman Empire, okay?
Yes, sir.
So this is going to be a visual presentation. I'm going to pull up the keynote, and we're going to go, and then we'll do a Q&A at the end.
Yes.
Before we get out of here.
No problem. While Red gets that together, once again, I want to give a shout out to everybody in the chat. I see we almost had 800 already. We just started the show, so I want y'all to make sure you should hit the like button. Make sure you hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe to the channel. And also, even if you are subscribed, you could text the word "rich" to 646-760-7806. I got a crew now. I got a group that I text before I go live, a community that I text before I go live every time, so they could definitely get the notification. YouTube always bullshits with notifying my subscribers. So if you want to be notified personally from me, text the word "rich" to 646-760-7806. All right, family? I will text you personally before I go live. All right, family? And with that being said, what you still waiting on that, Red?
Yeah, I'm clicking on this thing to allow StreamYard.
Yeah. They said Brother Rich is taking us through a portal with this lineup. Yeah, I mean, there's energy hitting the planet right now, and I'm just following orders.
That's
I'm
right.
I consider myself antenna consciousness more than I consider myself personality consciousness. So I want to be an antenna. I want to be a vessel. I'm not interested in being more of a personality. When you see me in anything great I do, the great questions I ask, or whatever the great guests I have on, give that respect to as Keebalon says, Big Mama in the Galactic Center, as Sister Myra says, Big Mama in the Galactic Center. You know what I'm saying? I'm pre-creation, I'm primordial. So I get orders from the big homie, the big homie. You know what I'm saying? I'm beyond the sun, moon, and the stars. I'm primordial. So when I get the order to step shit up, I got the order, Rich. It's time to step the shit up. I follow suit. My son's older. I told him when he got older I would. So yeah, it's important, family. It's real important now. Real important. That's why I'm talking to y'all like this, because I love and appreciate y'all, and I want y'all to be the greatest versions in this new paradigm that we're entering. You ready yet, Red?
I'm sending you the file right now. It's loading up, so you can share the screen for me because.
Why are you sending me the file, bro?
I gotta send it to you as a PDF because when I went to go open up the keynote, it ain't opening up on my side. I've tried to share my whole screen. It's not doing that. So I gotta send the file to you.
Oh man. Only Red Pill, man. You gotta love Red Pill, y'all. You gotta love Red Pill, man. You sent it already?
Nope. It's coming right now.
All right.
But in the meantime, between time, like I said before I load it up, I would like to have a conversation with the family dealing with this whole history about the Moors and antiquity and the Moors in Europe. What we're going to do is we're going to take a preliminary step and go a little bit back in time so I can take the family collectively through the history of what you may hear about the Moors in Spain, because in the conscious community and on these social media networks, you may be in contact with Moorish organizations, or you may know a Moor, or you may follow a Moor, things of that nature, or you may have heard about Moors from here and there. But I'm not going to make the assumption that we all know the definitive story about the Moors in Spain, their reign in Spain, the reasons behind their fall, who was responsible behind their fall, and also the impact of what the Holy Roman Empire had on ancient times and society today, okay? Because a lot of things that were established during that time is what we see and taking place today. A lot of those families that came out of that era, the Germanic tribes and things of that nature, and the Franks, these people are some of the same people that are in power today. So, we're going to explore that, right? We're definitely going to explore that. Like I said, you could take this lecture and you could put it together to what Blue Pill presented and draw the comparisons and be able to navigate and find answers. All right. It doesn't matter about whatever your school of knowledge and things of that nature may be. You may say, well, I'm into the occult. I'm not into the Moorish history. Well, I could show you how the Moors were some of the people who brought the occult to the forefront. You know what I mean? You could be like, I'm into metaphysics. You know what I'm saying? I'm following Bobby. Everybody wants to pick, their favorites and whatnot. But I could show you how metaphysics was a large part of the quote unquote Moorish saga. I could show you how metaphysics was introduced through the Orient and things of that nature. I could show you how metaphysics fares into the affairs of what is taking place these days. So one of the things that's also taking place amongst what we identify as the ops and whatnot is that they have a thorough understanding about bloodlines, genealogy. They have a thorough understanding about our history that is buried in a shallow grave. They have a thorough understanding about what it is, what keys that we were able to give to them. They have a thorough understanding about who we are in these days and times and who came back and basically who the bloodlines are, who are the heirs to the throne. They take your blood at birth, right? And they're able to run a genome or genealogy test. They're able to basically tap into your lineage. They understand, exactly who you are and they know who you aren't. One of the things that they have done throughout time in school in the education system, right, that was designed by the Rockefellers and things of that nature, is that they have convinced our ancestors, our grandmothers, our grandfathers, our fathers, and thus us, and now our children, that we do not descend from any line of royalty. We do not descend from any line of people who were worthy of anything. They don't even want to give you the proper history about the kingdoms in Africa. You know what I'm talking about? They just talk about slavery. So to have a wealth mind state, to have a prosperity mind state, to have a mind state of abundance, to truly live this conscious dream, you will not be able to tap into it if you still have the programming from the mental blockages of the malware that they've been downloading inside of our subconsciousness ever since they put us in front of these Europeans. And their job, by way of the oaths that they have taken to the crown and to the church, is to continuously subdue us and keep us in darkness and hide the truth from us by any means necessary. 90% of war is deception. 90% of war is deception, and deception is propaganda. So let's go to the first slide so I could just give a breakdown about who the Moors are and who they aren't, so we can have a proper understanding about who these people are when they show up in literature and when we refer to the ancient Moorish, the Moors in antiquity. Because like I was saying earlier, you may be familiar with the Moors of today, but there are Moors of today that are not even familiar with the Moors of yesterday. They may not know about the Moors in antiquity, and they may not know about, you may know people in the Nation of Islam. You may know people who are Sufi Muslims. You may know people who practice Islam, and they have no history whatsoever, no knowledge. They cannot draw themselves back to the 15, to the 14, to the 13, the 12, 11s. All they know is Prophet Muhammad, and that's it. So we want to help to put some of the pieces back that may be missing so we could complete the puzzles on this search of knowing thyself. All right. So the Aboriginal color of the Moors. Second slide, please.
Oh, 1 second, my fault.
Okay. Good. The Moors of the host wore silks and colorful clothes, which they has taken as booty. Their horses' reins were like fire, their faces as black as pitch. The handsomest among them was black as a cooking pot, and their eyes blazed like fire. Their horses as swift as leopards, their horsemen more cruel than the wolf that comes to a sheepfold in the night. O luckless Spain. That was a description of the Moors written in the 1200s AD. All right. It was an introduction to African civilizations by William N. Huggins, John J. Jackson. As for the black sheep, they are the Arabs. They will accept Islam and become many. The white sheep are the non-Arab Persians and the like. They will accept Islam and become so many that the Arabs will not be noticed amongst them. From the 15th century writer El Sayuti of Egypt, all right, red in his speech of the people from Hajiz means fair complexion, and his color is rare among the Arabs. This is the meaning of the saying, a red man as if he is one of the slaves. The speaker meant that his color is like that of the slaves who were captured from the Christians of Syria, Rome, and Persia. All right. If anybody is familiar with the modern day Syrians and how they look, then that's who they may be referring to when they speak about the red men. Next slide, please. Okay. This is just a cover to a book that I wrote in 2012, 666 pages, entitled The Moors in Antiquity, The Empire Strikes Back, The Divine Movement. This is some of the research that I'll be pulling from that book that I put out. This is the 10-year challenge, I guess. Hold on. 10 years ago, you know what I'm saying? 10 years ago when we was peeling the layers back. But let's continue, please. When you hear about the Moors in antiquity, right? And when you read, when they teach us in our history classes, some of us have gone to historically black universities. Some of us have gone to Ivy League schools. Some of us have gone to state, CUNY and SUNYs and whatnot. And they've put books like Shakespeare in our hands. We've read multiple literature coming out of the Western just Western civilization and whatnot, and they have their heroes and their authors and whatnot. And when you read about some of these quote unquote Moors in history, you may not know that you're reading about yourself. You may read some of these books and some of these accounts about wars and battles that took place and empires they once ruled. But if you're looking for them to directly say more, then you might miss out on what's being said, because they're never really just going to put it out there like that. They have to mask, they have to hide, and they have to utilize what is known as crypto language in order to put you in the story without putting you in the story. It's called being hidden in plain sight. So some of the names that you may see is words like Muscle Man, the Blackamoors, the Light Bearers, the Nobles, the Illuminated Ones, the Dark Knights, the Feet of Islam, the Sovereigns, the Sword of Islam, the Sorcerers, the Saracens, the Moors, the Berbers, the North Africans, the Muslims, the Indians, and the Gypsies.
Real quick, family, the screen is not blurry. Check your computer.
Next slide, please.
That's your computer. That's not.
The
I just checked
Berbers,
two computers.
you know, there's many different names that they go under in classical European literature. Indeed. So in his work, The Moor, Light of Europe's Dark Age, Wayne B. Chandler offers the following definition of the Moors. Although the term Moor has been put to diverse use, its roots are still traceable. Circa 46 BC, the Roman army entered West Africa, where they encountered black Africans who they called Moores, from the Greek adjective moros, meaning dark or black. Traditionally, the Moors were the African people who occupied Northwest Africa, or present-day Morocco and Mauritania. These same African people became converts to Islam in the 7th century and have since been mistakenly identified by Western European scholars as Arabs, Mohammedans, Saracens, or etc. W.E.B. Du Bois, in his work, The World in Africa, wrote on the subject. The Arabs brought the new religion of Muhammad into North Africa during the 7th century. They did not migrate in great numbers. Spain was conquered not by Arabs, but by armies of Berbers and Negroids led by Arabs. The truth is that the conquest of the Iberian Peninsula, Spain, and Portugal was an African, not an Arab conquest. The conquest of Spain and Portugal in the 8th century and later the greater part of Western Europe was orchestrated by the Arabs who conquered North Africa, but the actual conquest was carried out by African adherents of Islam. Next slide. Oh, hold on. I'm sorry. Let me just finish. Let me read that last line. The fact that people of African descent, or specifically the Moors, were in Western Europe from 710 AD until the late 1400s is indisputable. It is noteworthy that these Moors were in Europe as conquerors and served as a civilizing force, as opposed to being enslaved by the Europeans. The Moors had a tremendously positive impact on European cultural, socioeconomic, and political institutions. Next slide, please. The Moors invaded and conquered Spain, 711 to 1492. This is the Cordoba that you see in the background with the red and white arches and whatnot. This is some what is called Orientalist art that came out in the 1800s. These are depictions of Moorish nobles. Next slide, please. More pictures, more images, more iconography, more motifs of our people in antiquity, something that our children should see, something that the children, the younger generations need to see. They should encounter this in a virtual reality or augmented reality, whatever the new technology is. It needs to be adapted in order to show our people, us in antiquity, so they could shake the images of us being subservient, weak, and not worthy of praise and edification by their ancestors. Next slide, please. Nobility of the highest order. The true royals in Europe, before there was even a royal family of European or what you call Nordic descent, okay? They could not claim royalty because they don't have royal bloodlines. There's nothing to trace back to. All right, these Moorish nobilities were coming into Europe and other places out of North Africa. They've historically been coming into Europe ever since the days of Hannibal and the Punic Wars, and even before that, bro. You know what I'm saying? This is not something new. This is not something new. This is something that we've been doing historically, and we're still doing it. There are Moors and there's Africans that are still piling into Europe. They're still bringing their nobility with them. They're still bringing their intelligence with them. They're still bringing their quote unquote brains, their minds. You know what I mean? They're still bringing their resources with them into Europe. You know what I mean? And conquering in their own ways. Next slide. So as you see with the quote unquote Sharia law, they were they handed out very heavy handed penalties and whatnot. They were known for being very heavy handed with their law and very strict with their rules and things of that nature. And the way they meted out justice, they had the muftis that were the enforcers. All right. The muftis carried the quote unquote scimitars. Next slide, please. The scimitars were used to cut heads and whatnot and take it straight off. That is one of the symbols that you will see still carried on by the Moors of today. All right, the scimitar, which is a symbol of justice. Okay, I often hear about the black cowboys, and that's admirable. Shout out to the Rufus gang. But our people, we were known as equestrians. Next slide, please. We have what is known as the Andalusian horses, okay? The Andalusian horses. Even in Nigeria today, they have these illustrious horses and whatnot that are bejeweled and things of that nature. You find that in West Africa. That is a direct descent. That's of the Moorish lineage, of the Moorish dynasties and whatnot. Their horses were beautiful. When you even read about people like El Cid, who was a European warrior and whatnot, and his horses, they were only taken back. They were only mocking and trying to keep up with the royal, with what it is that we were doing, right? What it is that we were doing, how we came through dripping. You feel me? We were the ones. We were the trendsetters. We set the bar. We were able to give people a culture that they never, in their whole imagination, even thought that they can see. Okay. So when they talk about luxury, when they talk about fine detail, and when they talk about fine, and all of these other things, they are speaking of our ancestors directly, nothing else. Okay, that's what it goes back to, what the Moors were doing and what they brought, the type of style and the type of grace and the type of royalty and culture that they didn't introduce it anywhere. They had it with them. Wherever you go, that's where you at. So if I have culture, if I have style and grace, if I have a light, wherever I go, I'm going to shine my light, and I'm going to influence the people who I shine my light on. It's only natural. So I don't know. You just have to live it to understand what I'm talking about. You would just have to be able to live that. That's something experience brings. I can't teach that to nobody. If you don't got it, then you don't got it. But wherever you go, in 2020, all the way back into the year 2, and you shine your motherfucking light, you understand? And you pop your motherfucking collar, motherfuckers is gonna take notice, my nigga. You're gonna light up a motherfucking cave. That's what talk that sass, nigga. Talk that sass. You know what I'm talking about? Niggas be acting all salty because the Moors is dripping. Like, fuck out of here. What are you talking about? What do you mean? We can't help it that wherever we go, we are going to influence. We will make people who are on their knees stand upright because of the example that we show. We civilized the 85ers. It ain't where you from, it's where you at. You was who you was before you got here. So stay your ass home if you don't want people to motherfucking come up around you. Stay in your motherfucking jungle or in your hut, my nigga. Because when we explore and we go around the world, we carry royalty in our scrotum, meaning in our bloodline, in our seminal fluid. That's where the fucking royalty is. And we finna spread our seeds, my nigga. How about that? We give birth to royal bloodlines through marriage. That's how it works. And you applying modern day Negro conjecture to ancient shit. And you niggas can't even beat one officer from the police force. What are you talking about? And you worrying about who the Moors couldn't defeat and all of this stupid shit. Stop that. Humble yourself. These people was in power for centuries. You getting tied up by one police. Not even one police plaza, nigga. You got one police got their knee on a million niggas' necks. And you act like you got the authority to talk about what people was doing in antiquity as if you could lift one finger to that. So let's continue, please. Not only did we bring high culture, but we also brought scientists. We also brought the sciences. We also brought what is known as the quote unquote occultism wherever we went. Asia Major, Asia Minor, the North America, Atlantis, Lemuria, Mu Atlantis, Europe, Europa, Khalifa, wherever we went, we had to do the science. You didn't have, the niggas didn't have Nintendo Switch. We didn't have games to play with. We wasn't going to the movies with Bay. So what were we doing? We were writing treatises. We were inventing things. We was on our Tesla coil shit. The image above is called Vanitas. It's a painting that became popular amongst the occultists and royalty of Europe during the Baroque period. All right, it depicts a Moor seated amongst various esoteric symbols. As subject matter, the artist has carefully concealed the design of the Great Pyramid of Giza, revealing the shafts and the chambers. This is a testament to the extreme knowledge of mathematics and astronomy that the Moors possess. Next slide, please. For nearly 8 centuries under Mohammedan rule, Spain set all Europe a shining example of a civilized and enlightened state. Her fertile provinces rendered doubly prolific by the industrious engineering skill of the conquerors who bore fruit 100-fold. Cities innumerable sprang up in the rich valleys of the Guadalivia and the Guadina, whose names and names only commemorate the vanquished glories of their past. To Cordoba belongs all the beauty and ornaments that delight the eye or dazzle the sight. Her long line of sultans form her crowns of glory. Her necklace is strung with the pearls which her poets have gathered from the ocean of language. Her dress is the banners of learning, well knit together by her men of science, and the masters of every art and industry are the hem of her garments. Art, literature, and science prospered as then prospered nowhere else in Europe. Mathematics, astronomy, botany, history, philosophy, and jurisprudence were to be mastered in Spain and Spain alone. Whatever makes a kingdom great and prosperous, whatever tends to refinement and civilization, was found in Muslim Spain. When Granada fell, all of Spain's greatness for a brief while, indeed, the reflection of the Moorish splendor cast a borrowed light upon the history of the land which it had once warmed with its sunny radiance. The great epoch of Isabella, Charles V, and Philip II of Columbus, Cortez, and Pizarro shed a last halo about the dying monuments of a mighty state. When followed the abomination of dissolution, the rule of Inquisition, and a blackness of darkness in which Spain has been plunged ever since. In the land where science was once supreme, the Spanish doctors became noted for nothing but their ignorance and incapacity. What does that sound like today? The arts of Toledo and Almeria faded into insignificance. Then you got Pablo Picasso biting off the African artifacts, and you got all of this weird art that they try to say was high art, and it wasn't. It was white people with dyslexia painting. My bad. I'm not trying to sound facetious. I'm just saying. You know what I mean? They try to say abstract art. No, that's a white person with Tourette's. The richest and most fertile valleys of Languish were deserted, and most of the populous cities which had filled every district in Andalusia fell into ruinous decay, and beggars, friars, and banders took the place of scholars, merchants, and kings. So low fell Spain when she had driven away the Moors, such as the melancholy contrast offered by her history. Now think about this, right? I'm gonna go into Negro folklore to utilize a comparison. We've all watched, like, you know, some of those cop shows where they used to show like gangland and whatnot. And then they would show how neighborhoods used to be like in Harlem before the dope hit. Or they would show like how neighborhoods in LA was before the gangs hit and whatnot. And they would show how middle class Black America, how we was functioning before we got hit with the chemical warfare of heroin and then followed up by crack cocaine. So the difference in how our people fell into descent, where we were once illustrious and prosperous and we were looking great on the ebony covers, Black women were shining, had halos and shit like that. And then look at us now. That's similar to how we've been falling throughout history, when they kill our leaders, when they take out the chiefs and whatnot, when they murder and they assassinate our messengers, and then they plunge our people into some form of psychological slavery and whatnot, and they make them vassals of the state. You dig what I'm saying? So that's what we've been seeing over time. But next slide, please. So as we're showing, the Moors, along with the Jews, the Sephardic Jews, and other people that they were working with, and Christian scholars as well in some of these provinces, they were advancing metaphysics, occultism. They were advancing the study of Kabbalism, the Kabbalah and whatnot. They were writing a lot of treatises. They were breaking into a lot of formulas. They were creating a lot of elixirs. Even what is known as the algorithm was created all the way back then. Zero was introduced and a whole bunch of other things, okay? So wherever you combine people of great minds to come together to basically break atoms and whatnot, you know, you can come up. This is what we have in Silicon Valley. When these people come together and they brainstorm and whatnot, you have these different thinkers and visionaries coming together. What do they create? They create technology. They create new technology. They tap in and they give you all of these services and things of that nature. That's similar to what you were seeing in Moorish Spain during that time, when it was a cosmopolitan society and many different people from many different walks of life were out there debating, writing books, keeping up with each other. You know what I mean? Oh, you put this book out, I gotta put a better book out. My research gotta be better than yours. Leonardo da Vinci was basically, you know, he's inspired by all of the work that's being done over the centuries. He's a student, and then he becomes a master himself. So let's continue. These are some of the movies that you can tap into that they put out where they speak of our stories and they hide them in plain sight. But you know, Hollywood has to tell our story multiple times. As you can see, Sophia Stewart came on here last night and she explained to you how that tradition is still taking place, where they're interpreting and they're adapting our stories, putting it in whiteface and whatnot, and empowering themselves with the blueprint and the frameworks of our hero's journey. Okay, so the Sherlock Holmes with Robert Downey Jr., Lord of the Rings, the whole trilogy, The Matrix, Pirates of the Caribbean. All right, that's straight Moorish. That's the Corsairs. That's the quote unquote, you know, we are the Corsairs. We're the privateers. We are the Pirates of the Caribbean. Harry Potter and whatnot. That's all us. The Illusionists, you know what I'm talking about? That's all us. Yeah. Next slide, please. They just nominated Denzel for Macbeth and whatnot. You have Macbeth, you have all of these Shakespeare's, Othello and whatnot. That's all us. You feel me? That's all us. When you go back and watch it with a new set of glasses, you will be surprised how many Easter eggs are in there that they've been hiding and whatnot. But you know, it's in the dialogue. It's certain names that they say. It's certain places that things take place in. These are historic places in their quote unquote timeline or their folklore or our timeline, and they're repurposing it to put themselves in your timeline through the use of the magic that takes place in Hollywood. All societies, all high society does is they hire people to rewrite history in their favor, right? And now they got Hollywood to do that. Back then they had the printing press and other things to do that for them. Next slide. They do comic books, video games now, Hollywood. You know, they manipulate the school books. So, you know, they manipulate the books in the library. They're at work. By the end of the 7th century AD, the Islamic Jihad had swept through the Arabian Peninsula and North Africa. It was the Moorish general Tariq Zaid who was given the task of spreading Moorish holdings northward into the Iberian Peninsula. The catalyst of this action was the request by the Greek governor of Ceuta for help in emancipation from the tyranny of the Visigoth king Roderick, who then ruled Spain. All right. So the Visigoths, if anybody's familiar with the Gothic movement, if anybody, next slide, if anybody's familiar with the Gothic movement, if anybody's familiar with the Gothic stance that most of the quote unquote alt-writers, or what y'all call the white supremacists, the white boys on 4chan and things of that nature, the Proud Boys, they lean towards a certain type of psychology, the might of the right, you know what I mean? The Nordic mentality and whatnot. They flow with the quote unquote Gothic Visigoth, Ostrogoth, Gothic mentality. There's a huge revival of medieval literature, of medieval thought, of medieval quote unquote history and folklore amongst those circles, all up and down. So this is some of the quote, these are the ancestors that they identify with: the Visigoths, the Ostrogoths, the Vandals, the Aryans, and things of that nature, right? So the Visigoths were one of the two main branches of the Goths, an East Germanic tribe. When you do your research on the genealogy of the majority of quote unquote Europeans that are in America, who were in America, some of the first people that were in America, and then when you speak about some of the political parties, the holders of wealth, the people who were behind the scenes doing real shit, making real things move on the European side, you will begin to see that it's the Franks and the Germans who are at the top of, it's not the Spaniards, okay? You don't see a lot of influence from people from Spain the way that you see the influence of the Franks and the Germans and the Scots over here. And they have their hands deeply embedded in everything, okay? So the Germanic tribes, the Ostrogoths being the other, together these tribes were among the barbarians who disturbed the late Roman Empire during the migration period. The Romanized Visigoths first emerged as a distinct people during the 4th century, initially in the Balkans, where they participated in several wars with Rome. A Visigoth army under Alaric I eventually moved into Italy and famously sacked Rome in 410. A Visigoth nobleman, Paleo, is credited with beginning the Christian reconquista of Iberia in 718 when he defeated the Umayyads, which was a Moorish dynasty, in a battle and established the kingdom of Asturias in the northern part of the peninsula. Other Visigoths, refusing to adopt the Muslim faith or live under the rule, fled north to the kingdom of the Franks, and the Visigoths played a key role in the empire. All right, so the Franks, it turns into France eventually. All right, next slide, please. Next slide. No. These are the Vandals. These are some images, of course, some depictions of Vandals and whatnot in the sacking of Rome. These are some, next slide, these are some divisive battles that were fought, right, that determined the sway of power in Europe. And, you know, based off of the victory of some of these battles, it changed the course of history, both European history and also African history. All right. So one of the most important battles that took place in Europe, and it, to this day, right, hold on, is the Battle of Tours or the Battle of Poitiers. All right. October the 10th, 732. This encounter took place near the border between the Frankish realm and the independent region of Aquitaine. Frankish and Burgundian forces under Mayor of the Palace Charles Martel's command fought against an Umayyad army led by al-Gaddafi, the governor of Al-Andalus. In the preceding decades, the Muslims have conquered Iberia. They were making tentative expeditions into southern France. They were pushing the limits of their expansion far from the regional capital of Cordoba, Spain. At that time, Martel's forces defeated al-Gaddaf's contingent. It included about 70 Muslim families unprepared for warfare. The battle's location is described in Arabic historical works as the Plain of the Martyrs. Historians gave little attention to the engagement itself as a minor skirmish. However, European chroniclers increasingly began to praise Charles Martel as the champion of Christianity. What's more, 18th and 19th century historians came to characterize this battle as a decisive turning point in the struggle against Islam. Modern historians are divided as to whether the victory should be considered a landmark event that saved Christianity and halted the conquest of Europe by the Muslims. Okay, so that battle right there is the definitive, divisive battle that changed the course of history because Christianity was on the verge of being wiped out by the Moors as they advanced. Next slide, please. Okay, and this is the Battle of Roncesvalles. It took place in 778, right? So this was later on Charlemagne's ancestors, his descendants, right, was defeated. His Charlemagne, as a matter of fact, okay? Charlemagne was defeated and taken down. Give me 1 minute.
Yeah, give Red a second while he uses his phone. I'm sure it's extremely important. I hope y'all are enjoying yourselves. We got about 1,300 people in the chat. Make sure, family, please hit the like button. I continue to stress that. That's one of the things I'm going to stress this year. That's another form of support. I would love for y'all to support via Cash App. Another way, if you aren't able to, just at least you could do is hit the like button, family. All right? I think Red is back.
Yeah, pardon me, y'all. Okay, so Roncesvalles is situated in the Spanish regions of Navarre. It's close to the French border in the Pyrenees Mountains. I know I'm chopping these words up. The army of the Frankish king Charlemagne has entered northern Spain. He hoped to expand his empire's boundaries into Iberia, capturing Barcelona and Pamplona. Frankish commander Roland and his troops, comprising the army's rear guard, were returning to France across the Pyrenees. Suddenly, local Basque Christian tribes attacked Roland and his army unexpectedly. Though poorly equipped, these tribes knew their terrain well and defeated Roland's forces at the pass of Roncesvalles in 778. The famous Song of Roland, dated about 1110, immortalizes his valor. It is the earliest existing French epic poem. However, the poem relates that a Muslim Saracen army of 400,000 attacked Roland in the rear guard. Roland could not repeat the onslaught. His comrade urged him to summon aid from Charlemagne by sounding his horn, but it was too late. Handed down by oral tradition, this minor battle was romanticized into a major conflict between Christians and Muslims. So this goes down in history as one of the first propaganda. You know what I mean? One of the first uses of propaganda in war, because they got their ass kicked and whatnot. They did not, but they changed they created a song called the Song of Roland, and they switched their lyrics to make it seem like they defeated the Moors and they beat the Moors back, when they didn't do that at the end of the day. So even though they were defeated, they utilized propaganda to build up the morale of the people, and it went down to where it was like, even though they lost, they really didn't lose, because as long as you could keep the moral of the people up, then if they think that you're the victor, then you could possibly be the victors. So that's an interesting battle as well. Next slide, please. Just some images from these battles that they have historically. Next slide, please. All right, so I'm showing how Islam spread throughout the quote unquote world. So people who may have a limited understanding of what Islam is and how huge it is, they may only relegate Islam to Islamic countries, or these countries where they have Arabian people, what they usually call the Middle East, what they've misnomered the Middle East. But I'm here to show you that Islam, the global spread of Islam, is very, very big. It is global. It is a global movement, okay? And I'm going to show you the different nationalities and the different quote unquote phenotypes of our Muslim brothers and sisters around the world. All right, next slide, please, Brother Rich. Thank you so much for your help, your assistance. With a total population of nearly 3.5 million, The Moors are scattered throughout much of West Africa, right? You know, when you do your genealogy or your DNA report, a lot of people show West African descent, okay? So, although most of them live in Morocco, Moors can be found in Mali, Mauritania, Senegal, Niger, and Gambia. They are almost entirely Muslim, as they have been for many centuries. Formerly nomads, large number of Moors have settled in urban areas due to recent years of drought. Still, they remain nomadic in spirit, right? And you know how we are in the Americas, we're nomadic. We can't stay still. We always navigating and moving. That's why they call us the navigators of the seven seas, right? Even the Masons are known as traveling men. You know what I'm saying? We are always moving. We are always moving things around. We're always on the grid, moving through the parallels. Besides its usage in historical context, Moor and Moorish, Italian and Spanish is Moro, French is More, Portuguese is Moro, Romanian is Moro, is used to designate an ethnic group speaking the Hassina Arabic dialect. They inhabit Mauritania and parts of Algeria, Western Sahara, Tunisia, Morocco, Niger, and Mali. In Niger and Mali, these peoples are also known as the Azawad Arabs or the Azawad region of the Sahara. Next slide, please. These are some of the phenotypes of some of the Moorish brothers and sisters that you will see if you visit the quote-unquote regions that I just named in North Africa. If you go into the desert and things of that nature, look at the phenotype, look at the way that these people's quote-unquote noses, cheekbones, eyes, and lips are quote-unquote built. Next slide, please. As you can see with this brother who's a Tuareg Moor, you know, the Tuareg Moors are known throughout the Sahara and things of that nature. They were depicted in the modern day movie of Clash of the Titans. They were riding the camels and whatnot and fighting the scorpions. Next slide, please. Very beautiful women. You know what I'm talking about? If you can see their phenotypes, very beautiful women. We don't often see the depiction of melanated women on Arab television, Arab-run television in the Muslim world. We don't even know that they really exist. Next slide, please. As you can see with Alicia Keys, I juxtapose her picture next to a Berber woman. You know what I'm talking about? They're both amalgamated, as you can see. So those phenotypes are damn near identical. You know what I'm talking about? Those phenotypes are damn near identical. So yeah, we're going to go into the Holy Roman Empire. I've got some notes and whatnot that I put together. So I'm going to walk you through the Holy Roman Empire and the significance of the Holy Roman Empire, how it was formed, and what it means and things of that nature. So this next slide, please. Okay, so the Western Roman Empire collapses. They're sacked by the Vandals and the Ostrogoths, like I showed you earlier, the Visigoths and the Ostrogoths. They come and they sack the Western Roman Empire, and the Western Roman Empire collapses. And the Eastern Roman Empire, it evolves into the Byzantine Empire. The Byzantine Empire is the empire that was defeated by the Arabs when they came into North Africa and converted the quote-unquote North Africans into Moors, right? Because they were under the vassal of the Byzantine Empire until they were, you know, disposed of. Next slide, please. So in the place of the when the Romans jumped ship and when they left the quote unquote the people in Western Europe, right, the inhabitants, they were basically taken over by the Anglos. The Anglos and the Saxons were able to come in and they began to take power, right? In the book Modern Britons, next slide, please, by Mr. Ritchie. That's a very good, that's definitely required readings. Modern Day Britons, Volume 1 and 2. The Anglo-Saxons in 410, they invade and they take control. It's nearly 200,000 of them, and they conquer about 800,000 of the natives and whatnot. And as they conquer them, they begin to assimilate them into more Anglo-Saxon culture, okay? They begin to assimilate them and absorb them into Anglo-Saxon culture, all right? This goes down as the beginning of the Dark Ages, all right? This goes down in history as the beginning of the Dark Ages. Ancient and Modern Britons is the name of the book. Ancient and Modern Britons is the name of the book. Please use that as a reference source. Go and look that up. There's volume 1 and 2. It is required reading. Next slide, please. Okay. So early 400s, Rome abandoned the British Isles. All right. And then the Anglo-Saxons introduced something called a very guild. It was like a life insurance and also a protection from the warrior class of the Anglo-Saxons, because they had warrior classes amongst them. They were basically, preying upon the population and whatnot. So they began to basically pay taxes to a lord, right? The lords began to collect taxes to join the Anglo-Saxon society. All right. Financially, it was beneficial for them. They were offered protections to the natives and assimilation into the bloodlines. So the Anglo-Saxons begin to assimilate into the bloodlines of the natives. And by assimilating into the bloodlines of the native, they create relationships to the land. Once again, this is a historic way that you get ownership to the land, that the land is connected to the people. So how do you connect yourself to the land if you're not from the land? You marry into the families of the people that own the land. Hold on a minute. Hold on. You mean to tell me my mic wasn't on this whole time? You couldn't hear you hear the sound effects now?
Yeah, I heard it before, but it was had a little distance to it. But yeah, I hear you better now.
You hear it better?
Yeah.
The blood clot, man. I thought it was there the whole time. All right, The Black Diaspora by Edward Jones. I was somebody in the chat had recommended that book, The Black Diaspora by Edward Jones. So the very guild, that's the life insurance and the protection, right? So you got to remember, right, around this time, this creates what is known as the survival of the fittest, because it started to boil down to tribal warfare amongst the Anglo-Saxons and whatnot. They started out with 35 tribes in the early 400s, and by the 600s, it was only 6 main tribes, right? And the prevailing tribe that came out of that was called a tribe of Kent, the tribe of Kent, right? So this is where you get the beginning of brawn over brain, might over right, or might equals right, and the divine right, meaning the survival of the fittest that you see come out of Charles Darwin centuries later, where there's basically dog eat dog society, capitalism. You know what I mean? May the strongest man win, or may the strongest warriors win. May he who has the biggest gun win. That's how they was lining it up. That's the establishment. And we live in America, which is predicated off a WASP mentality, white Anglo-Saxon Protestants. You dig what I'm saying? White Anglo-Saxon Protestants. That's the original ruling class in the Americas, and those are the people who still pull the strings. Okay, next slide, please. So this group, right, called the Franks. Okay, the Franks, after the fall of the Anglo-Saxons and whatnot, there's an amalgamated group of migratory people known as the Franks, a nomadic tribe who have intermingled for centuries, right? So this is in 485. Right. So their leader, who goes by the name of Clovis, he overthrows the Visigoths. He brings with him some Roman mercenaries and whatnot. In order to overthrow the Visigoths, he aligns with Roman mercenaries. After Rome falls, their mercenaries and things of that nature, they are basically for hire. They're basically for hire to the highest bidder. So they basically overthrow, and they create what is known as Gaul, which is modern day France. Right. This is where you have the beginning of the Merovingian lineage and whatnot. Right. So what they do is they merge their Germanic traditions, their Roman values, and they put it with the Christian tradition. So this is the beginning of this fusion, or this synthesis that you see, where they're creating their own version of this new religion. They're creating their own religion because they're merging it with different traditions, different values. It's almost like like a fusion. Right. So in 496, their king Clovis converts to the Catholic religion. So once he converts to religion, of course, everybody follows suit. That's how it was done back in those days. Once they could convert the king converts the kingdom, right? And this is the beginning of the feudal estate society. Clovis begins what is known as the feudal estate society,
right? On the lands of the I don't want to pronounce this the wrong way, but he creates the feudal estate society on the lands of the latifundia of the Roman Empire, right? And he appoints 3 mayors to the different regions. This is the beginning of what you see as mayors. This is the beginning of the mayors, right? This is the beginning of mayors. This is the beginning of landlords. This is the beginning of feudalism, okay? This is what we lived through to this day. Hold on.
To this day.
It ain't changed. This is
to this day.
Look at the rents in New York. It went up 30%. The average rent in New York is $3,200 to live in a box where they on a block drilling niggas. How about that? You know what I'm talking about? That ain't it. You know, I just came from the gym show in Tucson, Arizona, right? These people showing you in plain sight that they took control of the land where the riches are. We paying rent to live in a fucking box. We can't even dig into the earth where the riches are. We can't extract oil. We can't extract it. We can extract it if we wanted to, but we just don't do it because I don't know. I can't really speak for nobody, but I just don't. Our people, what we don't know, we don't know. But the feudal estate society is established, right? It's the new kind of a synthesis of traditional culture of ancient Rome. And this is the rise of the universal religion, the one truth, one narrative, the the whole thing that we see today, where they're merging all of these things together and they utilize religion to rule the people. Next slide, please. Under this one truth and one narrative thing, right? So the tribe of Kent, all right. When Rome left, the Anglo-Saxons moved in. Civil war ensues. Now the tribe of Kent is the ruling tribe. Pope Gregory, he sends Augustine to convert King Aldebert to Christianity. And now, after they converted him, the church has free reign to spread the teachings of the church across Britain. Right. So now they converted the king to Christianity. They had the free reign to spread their teachings across Britain, and they began to indoctrinate their people into Christianity. Henceforth, you see the rise of the church in the British Isles. Right. And it has not changed to this day. Next slide, please. Christianity became the dominant belief structure throughout the British Isles. The church becomes the biggest landowner, and they become intertwined with the government. All forms of knowledge and education was being filtered through the church. There was a monopoly on the human minds and has been the standard in Britain to this day. Whenever you go to any of those islands, like Jamaica, wherever the British Empire took over, the nuns are teaching niggas history and everything. The church is the teacher, okay? And they beat you. You know what I'm talking about? They beat you with rulers. They out there paddling niggas. You know what I'm talking about? They beating you with rulers and all kind of stuff if you ask any type of questions. Okay, next slide, please. All right, 732, the Battle of Poitiers with Charles Martel that we talked about earlier, who's called the Hammer. I know that some of y'all drink the Martel liquor. Charles Martel is the Hammer. He's a very famous European king and whatnot. He didn't become a king, but he's like one of their warriors. He almost became a king, but he became crooked and drunk with power. He used his new powers to take from the church, and he began to fund landowners to fund his political rise. And he ushers in what is known as the Carolingian dynasty. All right, the Carolingian dynasty, which was also a whole renaissance. Next slide, please. Then after he dies, his son, Pepin the Short, takes over. He's the Frankish king, and he's granted authority over much of Western Europe after he defeated the invasion of the Lombards in northern Italy, right? So once he begins to take over, then there's a shift in power to where people don't look at the Byzantine Empire, which was in Eastern Europe, as the people to, because remember, you're paying the empire to protect you. You're paying the king to protect you and to hold you down. But once the Pepin the Short and them, they started rising up, the Franks and whatnot started rising up in Western Europe, they started telling the people, you don't need the Byzantine Empire. We'll protect you. You know what I mean? We'll hold back these quote unquote invading armies, because they were able to do that when they defeated the Lombards in northern Italy. So there's a shift of power taking place, and the quote unquote church is beginning to lose their hold on the people. Next slide, please. And you're seeing the monarchy begin to rise up, right? So the Frankish kings are now the protectorates, and the empire of the Byzantine is no longer needed for his protection. Next slide. Into Charles the Great, right, who is also known as Charlemagne, he was a proud, politically savvy, and a very violent leader, right? He goes forward and he conquers more territory. Then he merged everyone under the Nicene Creed, which is the Trinitarian universal Christianity, which is Catholicism. Franco-Roman values were merged with Catholic values. He's defeated by the Moors in 778 at the Battle of Roncesvalles. His grandfather, Charles Martel, was more successful. The propaganda was created, Song of Roland. I talked about that earlier. He creates a capital in modern day France, the city of Aachen, in praise of the Holy Rule, right? The donation of Constantine is the new title the church gets to give away. So even though he gets defeated, right, he takes propaganda into a whole new space, because even though after his defeat, you would expect him to basically, be sulking and whatnot, he goes and he creates a capital in modern day France, right, to praise his holy rule, right, to give him basically, to basically say that as an emperor, he's ordained by God. Right. So now they start talking about this whole thing of the merger of a king with that a pope usually possesses the power of, which is to be chosen by God. Right. So now, and then the church they come forward with the donation of Constantine. And with the donation of Constantine is basically the Pope's ability to give, to crown an emperor, a holy Roman emperor on planet Earth. All right. So we get to see this unfold. Next slide, please. All right. So Pope Leo the Third, he's forced into exile and he's put under Charlemagne's protection. Right. So as a result of that, the donation that the church had, they give it to Charlemagne. Right. So on Christmas of the year 800, which it wasn't Christmas back then, it was just December 25th of the year 800. When you're celebrating Christmas, you might be celebrating this ceremony right here. So on Christmas of the year 800, Pope Leo grants Charlemagne the title of Holy Roman Emperor. And by doing that, he establishes the new state of the Holy Roman Empire, right? It briefly brings Europe out of the Dark Ages. So from 790 to 900 is the Carolingian Renaissance, right? And what that does is reinvigorate the faith in the king and the church. They bring back literacy, classical education, and then you also have the rise of many famous schools around Europe, all the way into New Orleans and things of that nature. Next slide. We're talking, because remember, we're talking about the French here. We're talking about the Franks, right? So by creating the Holy Roman Empire, which was not the Roman Empire, what they did is they retroactively created an origin story by tapping in and summoning great empires of the past, right? So now the Pope becomes an emperor maker, okay? And by doing that, they become a foe of the Byzantine Empire and their emperor, because they got an empire and they got an emperor over in the Byzantine Empire, and they like, the Pope don't have the right to create emperors. Where's that power coming from? So that created what is known as the Great Schism and whatnot. So the feudalism, what we know as feudalism, is birthed through the Holy Roman Emperors. Next slide, please. In 1066, William the Conqueror, right, who was a Norman, the Norman and the French forces their conquest ends the 500-year Anglo-Saxon rule, right? So they come in and they put an end to the 500-year rule of the Anglo-Saxons. All right. So he immediately calls for a survey of land. And what they come out with is something that's even known to this day. You could Google it. It's called a Doomsday Book. right? The Doomsday Book. So this survey of land created what is known as the Doomsday Book. The Doomsday Book is almost like the beginning. It's almost like the predecessor to the surveys of the land that they would do in Africa, that they would do in the Americas, that they would do everywhere that they go to conquer. They would tap in and they would utilize this quote unquote, not this specific book, but this book will be the catalyst to the other surveys of lands that they would do when they conquer in the name of their church and whatnot. So the Doomsday Book, it documented all of the assets of the lands that he just conquered, like counting up all the livestock, taking a toll of every single thing there. So what he did was he took control of all of the land. He split it up amongst all of his men. All of the positions of power over 10 years were now held by his men in the military. And then he took control of the Catholic Church. And then at that point, the Catholic Church had a huge influence over the people and the land through thought and education. So now the king is in charge of the crown and the church, right? So he's holding enormous power. This is William the Conqueror. Next slide, please. Keep in mind, let's follow these bloodlines because this is what establishes, these different kings and bloodlines that we see going on throughout these lines. Next slide, please. So the Holy Roman emperors start to become more Germanic than they are Frankish, right? And the lay leadership, right? The lay leadership would be the kings, the barons, the lords, the mayors, the emperors, right? The lay leadership is going up against the quote unquote ecclesiastical leadership. The ecclesiastical leadership is the bishop, the cardinals, the popes. So it's the church versus the crown. It's the lay leadership. It's the royalty or the monarchy versus the quote unquote church. Right? This has been a historic battle that we've been seeing going on all throughout Europe since time immemorial. Okay. So the lay leadership began to aggravate the church. They began to gain they started gaining a lot of power, right? This is the post-Carolinian Renaissance. This is the new Dark Ages. The Antonian kings were growing their authority at the expense of the church. In 1073 to 1078, they began to choose their own church leaders in their local communities and their localities, right? So now this became the battle of who should have the final say in the construction of knowledge in society. It was called an investiture controversy, right? Who gets to appoint the power of the land in the name of the God? Should it be the lay leadership or the ecclesiastical church? Because keep in mind, the only thing that these people are concerned with is who has the final say in the construction of the knowledge, because whoever controls the narrative controls the world. That's all that matters. That's all they care about. That's why they control the media. That's why they control the books. That's why they control metaverse, social media. It's about controlling the narrative. As long as they can control the narrative, they not worrying about you niggas. They not worried because they change history based off of how it suits them. You see it today. You'll watch a bio flick on Lifetime or Netflix about somebody that you probably know personally, and you like, hold on, why did they switch the story up like that? This nigga Dr. Dre wrote himself into the NWA movie and he was an action figure, and he wasn't like that in real life. Next slide, please. So according to canon law, the church was the ones who were in charge of doing everything that I just mentioned. And by doing that, that created the great schism of 1078, right? Between Henry IV and Pope Gregory VII. They couldn't settle on temporal and ecclesiastic power sharing and whatnot. So in 1076, they called for Pope Gregory to abdicate the throne. He turns around and he excommunicates Henry, the quote unquote fourth, right? And then in 1077, the Council of Atone prevents lay investiture, which basically says that no, the nobles and the monarchy, they don't have power over the ecclesiastical title holders in the ecclesiastical society. No, they basically were stripping them of power. Civil war started. Civil war ensued in the Holy Roman Empire. The papal loyal princes, they adapted anti-king. So now you have anti-popes versus popes, anti-kings versus kings. And it was right along the time that the Crusades were taking place. All right, next slide. We almost finished with this. So it was the layman versus the ecclesiastical power play in England. In 1170, the martyrdom of St. Thomas Becket, the King of England, by the hands of the King of England, Henry II, in the cathedral in Canterbury. That started off a whole thing. He's a martyr, right? St. Thomas Becket, he rallied up the people and whatnot. Okay, in 1122, Henry V renounces his right for investitures, elections of bishops and abbots and whatnot. Next slide. In 1300, the plague in England wipes out 25 to 60% of their population. Okay, it wipes them out and whatnot. And you know, as you can imagine, that is a humongous shift in all kind of things and whatnot amongst their society. The way that the plague ran through them and whatnot. Next slide. 1500s, the Protestants Reformation. Next slide. All right. So the delineation for divine right. This is the great schism right here. This is when things begin to shift. In 1529, Henry VIII needed a male heir to his throne. He could not get it from his wife. So what he wanted to do is he wanted to get another wife. So he went to the Pope for his marriage to get annulled. When the Pope disapproved of it, he was like, hell to the no, we are not going to let you divorce this woman. That's not how that shit works. Henry gets angry. He breaks from the Roman Catholic Church and he creates and he becomes the head of the Church of England, right? He orders the dissolution of all monasteries and he takes all of their properties. This is the beginning of the synthesis of the church and the throne. You have Henry VIII becoming a pope and he's a king at the same time. Next slide, please. This has not been done. This is a historic thing. King Edward VI. He's 9 years old, right? He's crowned king, right? He dies at 15 years old. And then you have Mary I, Catherine of Aragon. This is the queen in 1553. She's a devout Roman Catholic. She tries to undo the English Reformation, repeals 1534. She repeals the Act of Supremacy. During her reign, the Protestants are persecuted severely. 300 are burned at the stake. She earns the nickname Bloody Mary. This is Bloody Mary. Right. So Bloody Mary eventually dies. Next slide, please. When Bloody Mary dies, her half sister Elizabeth I, who happens to be a devout Protestant, she takes over. And in 1558, she enacts the second act of supremacy. Right. And everyone was forced to take an oath. She's named the supreme governor of the Church of England. Right. But they couldn't name her the head of the church because she's a woman. Henry VIII was the supreme head of the Church of England. In 1558, the Act of Conformity establishes the self-belief structure of the Church of England, and that's the synthesis of Protestant, Catholic, and other religious tenets, right? Next slide, please. So when Elizabeth dies with no heirs and no line of succession, in 1657, James, the sixth king of Scotland, he takes over. And then he becomes the king of Scotland, and he becomes the first king of England. James is only 13 months old when he takes over, right? His tutor is a man by the name of George Buchanan, right? Who is a very anti-monarchy type of thought leader and whatnot. So he raises up James to basically, you know, think about in the whole mind state of, you know, monarchy being somewhat flawed and things of that nature. The concept of monarchy not being what people really think it is. But after they kill his mother at 20 years old, he basically makes a flip on that. Okay. And he goes completely to the left, where he starts to abdicate for monarchy over the people, right? He begins to abdicate for the monarchy or the royal bloodlines to be in complete control over the people, like oligarchs, right? Like rulers and whatnot, like dictators and whatnot. King James eventually goes on to write the King James Bible and whatnot. King James is a young king. He's highly educated. He's been educated by philosophers and scholars all his life. He's very intellectual and smart and whatnot. Like Dick Gregory said, he was a pervert and other things of that nature. Yeah, what they all were. He becomes king. He asserts his power to relegitimize the divine right of the monarchy over the people. In 1597, he writes Demonology, a book on witchcraft, werewolves, vampires, and supernatural phenomena. He asserts his authority on alternative narratives that challenge the Christian belief structures. Right? Next slide. Next slide. In 1603, his book gets published. Oversees the king. So he oversees the writing of the King James Bible. He puts out a book called A True Law of Free Monarchy, establishing true literature, which helped to manufacture the narratives of the divine right of the monarchy and the king over the people. King James believes in absolutism in the monarchy and things of that nature. And then he also convinces the people that rebellion is the same as witchcraft. Next slide. Because he's trying to quell the uprising of the people. Resistance is futile. Your soul will be damned to hell for going against the monarchy. You know what I mean? So he was the one who synthesized political authority and divine authority, and also the land authority. So he becomes all three of the vicars in one. He becomes the supreme council, the supreme ruler of the land, by merging all of these concepts and synthesizing them together, which was not done in his time before. It was done before in times of Kemet and other places where these dynasties took place, but he was able to grab that power and, basically, consolidate it and whatnot. And yeah, that's your King James Bible. So I'm gonna take some questions. You know what I mean? We've been going in for about an hour and a half and whatnot. I'm gonna take some questions. You feel me?
All right.
We're gonna take some questions from the people.
Can you hear me, Red? Can you hear me?
I hear you.
All right. I definitely appreciate that presentation. Family, any questions, put them in the chat. Before we get to the Q&A, family, as always, make sure you donate to the channel. I'm on here more than ever now. Like I said, I stepped it up. If you appreciate this presentation as well as the ones you began lately, show love and support by donating to Cash App $BlackMagic363. I want to thank everybody who donated to the super chat as well. All right, family, it's definitely appreciated. All right, on to the questions in the chat room. Then we're gonna wrap it up, family. We're gonna spend about 20 minutes with Q&A, and then we're gonna wrap it up. Let's see what y'all talking about in the I don't know if this is a question or a comment. Somebody says, people say that King James was gay. Question mark, question mark. Happy gay.
Probably was. A whole bunch of them was.
All right. That's all you want. Okay. At what point did the Moors sell us out? That seems to be a question everybody is on everybody's mind. How the Moors were sellouts.
The Moors were defeated. The Moors were conquered, as Blue Pill showed in the Doctrine of Discovery. Hold on a minute.
I know how that goes. Red Pill son. I know how that goes. Respect the fathers out here. Shout out to all the fathers, especially the fathers living with their children. I think that's another level of fatherhood that we're beginning to embrace more and more. So, and not to say that it's bad if you don't live with your child, but if you live with your child, it's a different level of fatherhood that you have to embrace. So just shout out to all the fathers, period. But the ones who live with their children, I can relate to what Red Pill just went to with his son right now. And he's back.
Bumbleclad.
Yes.
Yeah, so
Father Red.
The Moors were defeated. The Moors were, taken out. As we, I don't think we got into it tonight about the Battle of Al-Andalus and whatnot. I didn't get too deep into it. Like I said, this is a breeze through. There's so many more details to go with it. I assume that people think because they were basically put under stress and duress and had swords put to their necks, and many of them were beheaded and quartered and whatnot and hung, And then they forced some of the quote unquote cartologers, the people who wrote the maps, and they also forced some of the quote unquote sailors or the sea merchants to take them across the quote unquote the 7 they made them take them to the Americas.
Okay.
At the end of the day,
Terry,
at the end of the day,
could you? They said you skipped over the Magna Carta. Could you shed light on that? That's from Terry Harris.
I mean, that just goes into what we're showing on how the Europeans were utilizing their kingship or their monarchy to assert power over the people. It was always this constant struggle between if the church was going to have full reign over the minds and the bodies of the people, or they were going to share it with the church. Like I said, that's how you get the rise in feudalism, where the landlords take control of the lands. Prior to that, you had like indentured servants. Then you had what is known as serfdom. Then you had fiefdom and whatnot. So you had to work the land. You had to be in service too. You just not living on the land and you're not in service. So the landlords were able to send your sons to war. Like, yo, I got beef with this kingdom over here. We sending your sons to war because you live on my land. We got right to your woman and we got right to your daughters and whatnot. You live on our land, so we get first dibs, things like that. They had the rights not only to the people, and then of course later on in life you get chattel slavery or plantations and whatnot. But it kind of spins out of things of that nature, like serfdom and fiefdom and whatnot.
Mm-hmm. Were the Knight Templars Moors?
Were the Knights Templars Moors? I wouldn't necessarily say that the Knights Templars were Moors. I would say that amongst the Knight Templars, you probably had amalgamated Moors amongst the reigns of the Knights Templars, but I would not say that the whole Knights Templars were all originally Moors. However, what I do know is that these quote unquote Templars were very, they began to gain a lot of power. When you hear the story about how they were handled, it reads of a story of melanin men. You know what I mean? It would read of a story of a melanin army. It makes so much sense that it definitely would seem that these brothers and sisters, that these Knights of Malta, these men were not pure blood, blue-blooded Europeans. And they were influenced by quote unquote the Orientalists, or they were highly influenced by the quote unquote what was coming out of Eastern Europe, right? And the Catholic Church was intimidated because it would conflict with their narrative. Their narrative was about the Trinity. Their narrative was about they were putting together the narrative, and the Moors and other scholars they were taking that apart, right? They were busting it up. You know what I'm saying? So,
all right. Let's get to the next question. They say the Moors were defeated because of the curse of how they did the matriarch. Is this true, Red?
what did they do to the matriarch? I don't even know what that means. I don't know what they mean by the curse of how they did the matriarch. You know what I mean? What did they do to the matriarch? What was historically, what's historically on records of what they did to the matriarch?
Okay, let's get to the next question. Can the Moors and the Mexim build a nation?
Can the Moors and the Mexim build a nation? Yeah. A nation in a Mexim is not difficult to build. A nation in a Mexim would have to be built, the same way that we were able to build after quote unquote the Civil War, chattel slavery. It's not impossible. It is not impossible. What it would definitely have to incur is that the truth would have to come out, and Moors would have to stand on that truth. There's a lot of Aboriginal, indigenous bloodlines, brothers and sisters who belong to bloodlines in the Americas, who have claims to the land, deeds to the land. They have rights to estates. So once those rights are recognize, then the land building begins. I'm in Atlanta right now. The sister took me and Blue Pill to the Georgia mountains and showed us hundreds of acres, right? The same acres that Hereafter Farms with Brother Ben X, the same land. She has so much land. She took us on the other side and showed us that, like, look, that's what's up. Right. Like, the land is here. We just have to get to building. We have to till the soil. The way that I would answer that question would be, I would never say that it can't be built, because we would have to at least try. I would never say, oh yeah, they will blow it up, because nobody, you got to try first. I'm willing to try. It's worth trying. If it doesn't work, at least you could say you at least tried, but you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. So.
Okay, next question. How come the Moors didn't see it coming, knowing the kind of people they were dealing with?
There was a war called a Reconquista. It was for 700 years, right? There was also something called the Conquista. It was also something called the Crusades that took place. Then there was also something called the quote-unquote Inquisition, which lasted 400 years, right? I could show you hundreds of battles that took place over 800-year period, since 711 going up into 1492. Like I showed you the thing where they said they came up against Charles Martel and he defeated them in the Frankish Empire. And then the other one, Pelayo, he went and he built his own empire and he started the Reconquista. And on the Reconquista, they were reconquering Europe battle by battle. So they seen it coming because they was fighting for 800 years. How many people do you know been fighting for 800 years? How many people have been fighting for 800 years? How many people you know been fighting for 8 years? You feel me? So it's been a constant battle. After 800 years, your enemy may become a little, you know what I mean? They start to learn you and you get defeated. We were defeated from within. We didn't get defeated from without. The Moors had infighting. Okay, Muhammad X, he got crossed by his uncle. There was infighting, and that's how they started to collapse. There were different dynasties that disposed of other dynasties. There was a dynasty that came from West Africa, from Senegal, and they got rid of a whole dynasty because that dynasty was getting soft, and they were too amalgamated. They wiped them out. So nothing is supposed to last forever. Shit rises and falls all day. It was up for 800 years. What more do you expect?
Where does Mansa Musa, the richest man in the world, fit in this, or does he?
He was a Moor.
How does he fit into this?
And he came over to the Americas. You feel me? And he helped to establish what we see in South America and other places. Like, he was instrumental. That whole Silk Road. Remember, we are master merchants. We were the merchants of the Silk Road. We would take merchandise. We are the sea merchants. We would take merchandise and go around the world with it. You know what I'm talking about? The same way that the European was pulling up on the shores and they were enticing the natives with merch. They was hopping off the fucking boat with merch. That's how they began to connect with them. In historic context, you have traders like Trader Joe, right? You know the store Trader Joe? People would be traders. I would trade furs. I would trade silks, right? Imported from China that you can't find in other place. I would trade gunpowder for gold, for silver, for gemstones. They had gemstones. They was rocking gemstones. I was just at the motherfucking gem show, my nigga. Billions of dollars in gems, precious gems, shit that looked like alien stones. They was getting things like that from out of the caves, from out of mines and whatnot, the same way that they're getting them out of the same mines in Africa and Asia and India to this day. With this shit been going on. We were running up and down the Silk Road, bartering, trading, working the land. We were going to different, we were going across the Pacific and the Atlantic Ocean. We were the pirates of the Caribbean. When we descended into piracy, That's after we got defeated and we had to take to the high seas because the Europeans were hunting us down. The Portuguese were hunting us down by way of the papal bulls. Blue pill showed you in Doctrine of Discovery.
Pre-Pangea, was the world mostly Muslim?
No.
Okay, let's get to the next question. Do you think a division of black or elite are still in control?
I think some of the bloodlines that were in Europe that had Moorish coat of arms and whatnot, I wouldn't put it past the fact that some of the, there's some black people from those noble bloodlines that may still be amalgamated, you know what I mean? And still, I don't know, you know what I mean? I've sat down and I've shared that that speculation that it's some niggas that's running this shit. I have a strong feeling that it is. I know that it's not an all European thing at the top. I have no inkling. I don't feel like that. Don't feel like that.
Red, how do the Red and White Queen Fight for the Throne tie-in? Stars had a series on it.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
Okay. Why is it so confusing? I don't know. Why is it so confusing and difficult for a newbie to Moorish nationality to get proper help or guidance to nationality?
There's a lot of propaganda that's out there. You know what I'm saying? There's no true definitive onboarding apparatus to bring you into your nationality. At this point, you're rolling the dice. You feel me? There's no real onboarding. There's no say. We need that on the blockchain. You know what I mean? We need a filter system in order to get you into your nationality properly. So that's something that's a hack. That's something that needs to be hacked immediately because it became a problem.
I'm gonna take two more questions, family. How did the natives have treaties? As in, who made their treaties legal?
They made their treaties legal. Just understand, put into the context of you visiting somebody's land who has power on their land. Not only do they have power on their land, they're showing you that they are in control of their land. They're controlling the land. They're controlling the natural resources. They can make it rain. They can make the motherfucking fire talk to you and whatnot. They could do a bunch of things. So they're in control of their land. They know their land. You don't know their land. The European did not know this land. He did not know how to move around the land. He could not eat off of the land. He didn't know how to till the soil. He didn't know how to move through the swamps. He was not in control of the flora of the fauna. He's just giving you names of fucking animals that he discovered in 2022, meaning that he just got here. You know what I mean? So, of course, in order for the treaties, remember, you have traders, right? So the people who will come on the land and say, yo, we want to just come to the Carolinas or we want to come to Virginia and we want to trade, we want, you guys got animal pelts. You got like foxes and shit. You got beaver tails and whatnot. We're in Europe. So we need sheepskin. We need heavy fucking, we need those bear skins and whatnot. We'll trade you what we have for what you have. We'll sign a treaty to give us 30 days on your land, but you can't pass this demarcation line because there's another tribe that will scalp you that we got beef with this tribe. They're not even part of our confederation. So we can't even protect you past this line right here. But if you want to fish, if you want to hunt, if you want to capture game and whatnot, we're going to give you the treaty to do that. It started with that, and then it really went bigger than that. Okay? It started with that, and then it escalated into more different treaties and whatnot. And then you had treaties that were signed as a result of them, stopping wars and shit like that. You feel me? After the European began to utilize savage warfare tactics where he was killing the women and the children, and that's not how the Aboriginals naturally was fight. They didn't get down like that. But you'll know who your enemy is by meeting them on the battlefield. And he who is most savage usually could win this shit. You serious? You been to war lately? They went up against some people who were the Europeans that came to confront the Aboriginals were war torn from fighting the Moors for 700 years. They were war torn. They were ready for war. The people over here, they was not warring like that. They were not warring with advanced warfare. They didn't have gunpowder. They didn't have full armor shields. They didn't have war horses, war dogs. They didn't have the type of iron and whatnot. They didn't have the artillery. So when they came over here to Europe, they was in an advantage. These people were not in savage mode. The invaders were. And then they saw the gold, they saw the natural resources, they saw the abundance at this land of milk and honey, and their fangs came out. And they were utilizing the church doctrines, the papal bull. They were doing atrocities in the name of their God. And they were sending up sacrifices and feeding their egregor, their God, their deities and entities, because the Pope signed off. Once he signs off, you got free reign. They had a priest to absolve them of their sins whenever they would chop up a whole village of children and kids. So sometimes the treaties were forced, right? Sometimes they weren't. But yeah, that's how we brokered our peace, and that's how certain things were done. You had to do sit downs, and you had to come to some type of treaty, which is it could be sometimes a compromise, or it could be what is known today. We do contracts and shit like that. Back then you do treaties. And did they honor their treaties? Of course they did not. Why? They don't feel the right. They have their courts to protect them. They have their quote unquote fiat to protect them. They already took the fucking land. They're living off of it. They're excavating it. They're going to stall you out for hundreds of years until they finish raping the land.
All right, we're going to get to one more question, family, to end out today's presentation. Red Pill, what do you think is causing our fall each and every time we rise all through the centuries?
The ebb and flow of life, the natural cycles, arrogance, the four devils rise up, gluttony, greed. You know what I mean? There's a lot, like when the Indians got defeated, when the tribes got defeated, when the confederacies fell, guess who they fell at the hands of? Some of the other confederacies. And the Europeans was in the background just playing like how on the NFL, you got the coach and he got the players out there running against, he got the black players banging on each other. That's how some of the generals in the French army, the Spanish army, and the English army was. You seen it in the movie with Leonardo DiCaprio called Reverence. They showed you how they used to do war. The Europeans wasn't really getting busy. They had the Indians fighting. So the war tactic in that's an old time war tactic. It's called divide and conquer. So I'm the European powerhouse. I'm the European army, right? I weaponize or I deputize the Indians who are traitors to their brothers, right? We play off of the evils. We find out who's the traitor, right? Who's the cipher in the cipher? Who's the non-loyalist? Who's really not, who's the disgruntled group out here? And then they empower them, like how they do these specialized groups in America. But when they play the politic games, they get the marginalized groups and then they make them protective groups. And what do? They deputize them. They weaponize them. So what did they do? They deputized these groups or these tribes. They gave them rifles and shit like that. Then when they rolled down and they wiped out the other tribes, then the Europeans came and wiped out the niggas who was working for them. It's a classic war tactic. So they ran that play from their playbook many times, and then when the smoke cleared, this shit was cleared up, and they took the reins. I was in Georgia. I'm in Georgia now. I've been through the Carolinas. I've been through Florida and other places. Like you could just feel the remnants of what it is that they've been over here doing to our people. It's on their face. When you'll see it. Shout out to Ross Ben. Shout out to my brother Talik out of Houston. Me and Blue Pill got invited to be host at a powwow in Texas over the summer. I'm putting on my feathers, you know what I'm talking about? And I'm tapping in, you know what I mean? I'm Choctaw. So we used to do the powwows out there on Long Island. You know, Long Island is where the tribes, where they took the Hamptons from our ancestors, like fertile, beautiful, wealthy, rich land. Those were our homelands. Those were our ancestral lands. That's our moorland estates. You know what I mean? The Caribbean, North America, South America, all over. So collectively, we got work to do. And the truth shall set us free. Like Ross Ben says, free your minds and your minds will follow. So we got to activate these grids. We got to go back and tap into these mounds. We have to, ground ourselves, speak the names of our ancestors, all of these things, and do more research, because the research is therapeutic. You know what I mean?
Man, well, I appreciate this presentation tonight, Red. I appreciate you talking to the people, answering questions. Look forward to having you on here again. Is there anything you got anything coming up you want to tell the people about before we get out of here?
Right. Me and Ross Ben and Illuminati Congo, we was in Phoenix, Arizona at the gym show, in Tucson, Arizona at the gym show last week. We caught about 4 hours of some powerful footage, some beautiful behind the scenes footage. I made so many contacts. Like I'm about to disappear for a few months. I'm really going into hibernation, and I'm on my G.I. Joe. I'm on my Indiana Jones, Laura Croft. I'm a Tomb Raider. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to get the Infinity Stones. You know what I mean? Like, we tapped into some great resources. So I'm taking all of the footage. I'm in post-production right now. We're going to put together like a 2-hour, 3-hour presentation along with a Q&A. You know what I'm saying? The tickets, it's going to be at the end of February. The tickets is on KTLUniversity.com, KTLUniversity.com. You get it right there. And that's about it. We got something big that we got planned coming up, but we don't want to let that cat out the bag. The ink ain't dry yet. Yeah, I'm talking about, but yeah.
Okay.
Family.
Yeah, Red.
Yeah, Cash App, # Phil Moreland. Sock it to my pocket. I appreciate everybody in the building for pulling up. I love y'all questions. Like I said, Brother Rich, you on fire. You on a roll right now. I look forward to coming back with either another scholar or finishing up some things and bringing more information to the family. But I'm definitely honored in what is known as Black History Month to contribute and to add on to helping to unlock and to answer some questions and to help brothers and sisters along their journey of knowing thyself, because what it did for me was profound in healing me from my inferiority complexes. That's some if you willing to admit that, it's some freedom in that shit when you can admit that you had an inferiority complex based off of being immersed in Western society's culture.
It's definitely advice that the people need to hear, especially with the images that we constantly be fed. Family, another reminder: tomorrow, Billy Carson will be on live with with a presentation as well. So we keeping it going, high level presentations. He's coming on at 9:30 tomorrow night, so make sure you'll tune in for that. AA Rashid will be on Friday at 9 p.m. with a presentation. The phonetic fingerprints of the gods.
Legend.
Oh shit. Oh,
and
man.
I also want to say thank you everybody that was sending healing energy to his nephew, because his nephew pulled through. He's gonna be all right. We're gonna save these young gods. We're gonna make some shit happen. We're gonna stop the senseless violence that's taking place, and we're gonna make sense of it. So I appreciate, because I asked the family to put to cloak that young man and to send some healing and some light. I spoke to his father and everything. So we 10 toes down and we standing, we gonna ride for the young God. You know what I'm talking about?
Indeed. I talked to his father yesterday with Blue Pill. Blue Pill out there in Arizona with him. Yeah, indeed. So shout out to that brother, his family, AA Blue Pill, everybody. This is Brother Rich, Brother Red Pill from KTL We signing out, family. Thank you once again, family. Peace.
Peace.